Story time about how my dad was on the news and now everybody knows my last name. So a little background information. This all happened whenever I was in 6th grade. This all happened on a Tuesday night. So I had school the next day. Well, my dad had went to work earlier in the day. Well, around 10 o'clock at night, we hadn't heard from my dad all day, which was super weird for him because he was always home around 10 o'clock. And even if he wasn't, he still would have kept in contact with us and let us know where he was at. So at this point, my family and I were really scared, and we're thinking that something happened to him. I was calling and texting him, my mom was calling and texting him. My whole family was pretty much trying to get a hold of him. Like, we had called all the hospitals to see if he was there. We called police stations to see if he might have been in jail or if they had his last name in the system. So nobody had heard or seen from him. So we all went to sleep that night hoping that he would show up in the morning. So the next day after I got home from school, my mom came home from work and she had told me about this phone call that she got. Like for part 2. Part 2 of how my dad was on the news and now everybody knows my last name. So like I said, my mom had gotten home from work and she told me about this phone call that she got while she was at work. So apparently one of her coworkers called her and said, "Hey, I think I saw your husband on the news." So after that, she showed me the news article and I couldn't even believe what I was reading. So I guess my dad had been drinking and he went to an auto repair shop and stole a car because I guess the keys were left in the door of the car. And what makes this even worse, the car that he stole had 2 guns in the trunk. And they weren't 2 pistols, these were 2 big ass guns that were fucking loaded. Oh wait, I forgot something. So before this, he had been at the strip club and somehow he ended up in pink lingerie. Guys, I cannot make this shit up. So he was driving around and he decided to park right in the middle of an intersection and it was literally causing a whole fucking scene. There were people with their kids worried as hell. So after that, a few people called the cops, like for part 3. Part 2 about how my dad was on the news and now everybody knows my last name. So like I said, my dad parked in the middle of an intersection and people were calling the cops. So when the police arrived, my dad was half passed out in the car. This happened in like the middle of broad day, like there's traffic everywhere. So when they finally get up to the car, my dad is literally slumped in the driver's seat. There was a bottle of whiskey in the door and it was completely empty. When they went to arrest him, he started resisting. He was screaming a bunch of profanities at them and started kicking them, threatening them with guns, which made the situation worse because my dad had no clue that there were any guns in the back of the car. So that just made the police think that they were his. So they take my dad to jail and he has like 7 charges against him. But we were happy because we knew where he was. Well, the worst part is, so the next day when I went to school, people were coming up to me asking if that was my dad on the news. Some people were even making fun of me because of what he did. And that's really fucking embarrassing for a 12-year-old. But it's okay, Dad, I still love you.
So I can't really tell if it's romantic or not that my boyfriend put me up as the prize to a race without me knowing. To give some backstory, we were dating on and off for about 1.5 years. And we'll just go ahead and call this man Brad. We met in health class and he was kind of an a-hole, but I honestly fell so hard for him. Well, around this time, he sold his old car and got a beautiful 2015 black Charger. And let me tell y'all, I would feel like such a baddie when he'd come pick me up. And when I moved an hour away, he would still come pick me up weekly and take me to nice hotels. Well, one day he was talking to me about how obsessed his friends are with me, which I thought was so strange, but he was like, "Yeah, I showed them your picture. They all think you are so fine." And I guess they all talked about how they wish they could have a chance with someone like me and blah, blah, blah. And that's when he decided to enter his fancy little car into a race. He asked me if I wanted to come see him perform, but we were in the dead of winter, so I was like, probably not. That's when he started begging me and told me that the prize was really important. So I decided to go. Follow my Insta. Storytime part 2 to my boyfriend putting me up as the prize for a race without me knowing. So when I showed up, I had a feeling that the prize was pretty important. So when I finally saw him, I was like, "Hey, so what exactly is the prize?" And he gave me the weirdest look and he was like, babe, you know how all my friends think you're hot, right? I was like, I mean, sure. And he goes, "Well, I told them whoever wins gets to be your boyfriend." So I was like, WTF, Brad? Why would you do that? And he just looks at me and goes, "Don't worry, I'll win." And I was like, "Well, you better." So I literally stood out there in the cold watching a race that I could barely see. There was someone really tall in front of me. My heart almost dropped several times because I kept hearing Brad is gonna lose. And then I pushed the guy in front of me out of the way and saw Brad cross the finish line. One of his friends actually came up to us after the race and claimed that Brad cheated to win. He was probably just a sore loser, but we celebrated the rest of the night. If you guys have a story you'd like to share, follow me and DM me on Instagram.
Storytime of how my entire virtual online class found out that I was pregnant and one of them ended up telling my mom. So due to COVID where I live, there is no in-person school, so everybody is virtual. So I was in my first block, and you only have to turn on your cameras for when she does attendance and then when you're talking. So I was called on and I had to answer a question, so I unmuted myself and I turned on my camera. And then when I was done, I turned off my camera and I think I forgot to mute myself back. After that, during that week, I was already having a pregnancy scare, so I FaceTimed my boyfriend and I went to go take a pregnancy test. Mind you, I don't really listen in class to begin with, so I turned the volume all the way back down because when the teacher calls on you once, she doesn't call on you again. So again, I couldn't hear anything happening in the classroom. So I was on the phone with my boyfriend. I was freaking out while I was taking a pregnancy test, and it ended up coming back positive. So I started freaking out and I started bawling my eyes out. And in my room, I was screaming, I'm pregnant, what am I gonna do? I look back over and the session had ended. And everyone in that class is texting me like, oh my God, are you okay? I'm here for you, blah, 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 blah. So of course I start to freak out. I'm running out of time like for part 2. Part 2 of how my whole entire online class found out that I was pregnant and one of them told my mom. So continuing with the story, I texted a couple of them back and I was like, how did you know? And they were like, we heard you sobbing in the background screaming, I'm pregnant. Then one of them goes, we heard some guy in the background screaming, just get a hanger, and you were screaming, no! Then one of them comes to tell me that the teacher had to start a brand new class because I wouldn't mute myself. So then I emailed my teacher and I told her that I was going through a really hard time and I really do apologize. And then she explained to me that everything was fine, like she understands things happen. So we were all good until like 3 days later. And my mom calls me telling me that somebody in my class had told her that I am pregnant. And I tried telling her like, no, like that is not true. That is not true whatsoever. And then she sends me a recording that somebody else sent her of me in my room bawling my eyes out screaming, I'm pregnant, I don't know what to do. So somebody in my class was a big old snitch and sent a recording of me screaming I'm pregnant to my mom. And my mom is trying to force me to get an abortion, but I don't want to. To sum it up, I'm moving in with my grandma because she's super supportive. And in 3 months, I'll be having a baby boy.
This is a story time of why I dropped out of high school on my first day. And when I say my first day, I mean my first day of freshman year. After this, I never went back. So like I said, it was the first day of freshman year and I have extreme anxiety. My anxiety is literally so bad. I literally get anxiety just by waking up in the morning. So I was super anxious for my first day of high school. I literally was running around the school. I could not find my classes. I walked into the wrong classroom several times. It was so embarrassing. But then I finally made it to my first class. I sat down in the front of the classroom. Bad idea. After running around the school and not being able to find my classes and walking into different classes that I wasn't supposed to be in, which was so embarrassing, my stomach was literally in my ass. My stomach was literally bubbling because of my anxiety. I felt so much pressure in my stomach, I needed to let some out. And I thought I could get away with it, a little silent fart. It was silent, but it was not a fart. I shit my pants. Then the teacher says we're gonna go around the classroom and everyone has to stand up and say one thing about ourselves. Starting with me, since I was sitting at the front. Now this is what happened, like for part 2. This is part 2 of why I dropped out of high school my first day of freshman year. So like I said, I just shit myself in class. The teacher says we have to go around the room and everyone has to stand up and say something about themselves. And of course, I had to be sitting in the front of the classroom and I had to go first. So I just told her I didn't feel comfortable standing up and I'd rather sit down, but she said that I had to stand up and everybody has to stand up. So I clearly did not have many options and I decided that I was gonna stand up. And so I stood up and everybody gasped, even the teacher. The teacher literally made everybody get out of the classroom. And I knew from there on out, I could not show my face in that school anymore. I knew all day everyone was going to talk about that one kid that shit themselves in class. Yeah, the teacher took everyone out of the class and then I got myself cleaned up. Went to the office, told them what happened. They called my mom. They let me go home. I cried to my mom and told her I could not show my face at that school anymore. And so she pulled me out of high school and I just did online until I graduated.
I slept with my mom's husband. Disclaimer, this is not my story. And let's call him Jack. Well, Jack and my mom were married for about 8 years. Yes, they got divorced. Not because of me. She doesn't even know. Well, when I was about 25 years old, my mom said that it was time for me to move out because her and Jack needed their space. And I was like, okay. So I moved in with a roommate, 15 minutes away from home, not too far. Well, about a year after I moved out, Jack called me and told me that him and my mom were having problems and that he wanted to talk to me because they were getting a divorce and he wanted to explain everything because I was like his daughter. Yeah, okay. Well, the day comes and I could tell that he's very sad. So I lean over and he kissed me. Running out of time, follow my Instagram for part 2.
I slept with my mom's husband part 2. Okay, so he kissed me. I was in shock at first, but honestly, guys, I kissed him back. I don't even know why. And the worst part of all of this is that I don't even feel bad because now he's actually my sugar daddy. Well, anyways, after that night, we were both shook, and we both decided that we would take some time to think about it. Well, the time that we took was 3 days, because he came back, and that's when we, did the dirty. We both liked it, and we're actually deciding to tell my mom, but I still don't know how to feel about it. Like, this guy wants me to have kids with him. This guy was my mom's husband, but I feel attracted to him. Now, you guys, let me know, what should I do?
This is why they call me Miss Petty, and this is also why you should never let your boyfriend have a girl best friend. Let's get right into it. So my boyfriend had this girl best friend who he was friends with for like 2 months before he met me. So yeah, not a very long time. Over the course of those 2 months, she had bought him $5,000 worth of stuff. That's a little too nice for a best friend for me. But my boyfriend told me to trust him and that they were just friends. I should try and talk to her and shit, maybe me and her could even become friends. So me and her actually did hang out one day. It was me, her, and my boyfriend, and we were all drinking. My boyfriend passed out a little early, so it was only me and her awake. I was getting really tipsy, and I ended up throwing up all over myself. My boyfriend's girl best friend laid my head back on the sink and started washing my hair. And I was like, oh my gosh, what if I spoke too soon about her? What if she's actually not that bad? And she was washing my hair so nice, I felt smooth and silky. A little too smooth and silky. Well, I woke up the next morning to notice that my boyfriend's best friend is gone. And when I went to the bathroom and looked in the mirror, I was completely bald. Part 2 of why they call me Miss Petty. So like I said, when I woke up, my boyfriend's best friend wasn't there. And when I looked in the mirror, I was completely bald. So I woke up my boyfriend and he's shocked. He's like, what the fuck did you do? And I was like, what the fuck did I do? I know his best friend did this. When I texted her number, the messages weren't going through. And when I checked her socials, I was blocked on everything. I made my boyfriend DM her on Insta, but we watched her Instagram story and there were so many pictures of me bald while I was asleep. At this point, I was literally bawling my eyes out. My long, luscious hair was gone. I even called my mom. Mind you, we were all in college. So yeah, like I said, I was bawling. I was honestly ready to give up on life right then and there. I was regretting even going to college. I'm just kidding, stay in school, kids. But those tears ain't last for long, child. I was gonna get my sweet revenge. So little old me made a sugar daddy page. I did some follow for follow so I could get some followers so it could look legit. And I posted some pictures of an old man I found on Facebook. Then I DM'd her and asked her if she wanted to be my sugar baby. And she said yes. This is where the fun begins, like for part 3. This is part 3 of why they call me Miss Petty. So I made a fake sugar daddy page and DM'd my boyfriend's girl best friend and asked her if she wanted to be my sugar baby. And she said yes. You want to know why she said yes? Well, that $5,000 worth of stuff she bought for my boyfriend came in handy. A week had passed since she posted all those pictures of me bald while sleeping. Oh, by the way, she saw Nair in the bathroom and used that to wash my hair. Well, a week passed and over that week, I sold all the stuff she bought for my boyfriend. I actually ended up getting like $6,000 back. So basically, I told her I would pay her $1,000 a week in exchange for some sexy pics. And I sent her $700 right there so she thought it wasn't fake. Bitch didn't even know she was getting her own money back. So I sent her $1,000 a week for 5 weeks in exchange for pictures. Well, once all the money ran out, it was time for revenge. I gathered up all the pictures that she sent me, made a fake page pretending to be her, and sent the pictures to her parents, her job, the school, and to multiple girls' boyfriends on Instagram with the text, break up with your girlfriend cause I'm bored, but shh, don't tell anyone. Like for part 4. This is part 4 of why they call me Miss Petty. So after I catfished my boyfriend's girl best friend and posted her nudes everywhere and sent them to a lot of girls' boyfriend. Obviously, she was getting so much backlash and everybody was posting about it and everybody was coming at her. So many people wanted to beat her ass. It was hilarious. She kept trying to say, no, it's not me behind the fake page, but nobody believed her. She had to go completely ghost on social media. Little did everybody know I was the mastermind behind the whole thing. She didn't show up to school for like a week or so, but then the day that she came back, I'm not exactly sure why she came back, but she got jumped by 5 girls. But not only did she get jumped, they threw her in the trash can. I almost felt bad until I remembered how long and luscious my hair used to be. Let this be a reminder to everybody to just stay in your lane. Eventually, she dropped out of that college, and I'm guessing she went to some other college, but everybody hated her there, so she had to move. Damn, karma really is a bitch, and so is your mama.
Here's a story about how my handwriting helped me pass biology. So my freshman year of high school, I was taking biology, and my teacher was kind of odd. But I was one of her favorites, so I couldn't complain. And I was only one of her favorites because she loved my handwriting. I remember her telling me, Abby, I don't want to mark this wrong because your handwriting is beautiful on the paper. But wait, it gets better. One time, she asked me to come in during lunch to work on her daughter's wedding invitation. She wanted my 14-year-old ass to write her daughter's wedding invitation. But I said, okay, let me collect my coins. And so I'm in her class, just like writing, chatting, when I tell her, Miss, I'm so scared for the biology test that we have this week because I just haven't been able to study. I just want your daughter's wedding invitations to come out so nice. And she goes, Abby, do not worry about it. Just come up to my desk when we hand out the tests tomorrow. She can be the answer key. So yeah, that's honestly how I got good grades in high school, because all my teachers liked my handwriting.
Story time about why I made my boyfriend stop being friends with his girl best friend. So a little background information. I was in my sophomore year of high school, and my boyfriend and I had been dating for about 6 months. And he had been best friends with this girl, we're gonna call her Addie, for about 3 years. Now, I had known Addie way before that, probably since we were in kindergarten. But her and I weren't like BFFs, we were more of acquaintances. But obviously we became friends because she was always around my boyfriend. A month after him and I started dating, I decided that we had to set boundaries for their friendship. Because they had first period together, right? Well, every morning at 9:45, I would go on Snapchat and I would see a picture of them. And it would be her kissing him on the cheek. Not only would it be on her story, but it would also be on his. And I had her on Snapchat before that. She had never done that, ever. So he said that he had talked to Addie about it, right? And things were good for the next 2 months. Then they were forced to work together on a project. Like for part 2. Part 2 about why I made my boyfriend stop being friends with his girl best friend. So like I said, they had been forced to work together on a school project. At least that's what he told me. So I brushed it off because I was not about to seem like the jealous girlfriend. Well, the next day, him and I were supposed to go out to the movies. So I texted him right before we were about to leave, and I said, hey, are you on your way to get me? He goes, OMG, no, I'm sorry, I forgot. I have to work with Addie on this project. She's about to come over my house. So at this point, I'm like really pissed off. So I text him and I say, I thought you guys had a whole week to work on this project. Why does it have to be tonight? Addie knew that him and I were supposed to go to the movies that night also. He said, we just want to get it done really quickly so that way I can spend the rest of the week with you. And she's snapping me the whole time that she's at his house off of his phone. So at around 1:30 a.m., I get a Snapchat from her on his account and she's laying on his chest. Like for part 3. Part 3 about why I made my boyfriend stop being friends with his girl best friend. So like I said, she snaps me at 1:30 in the morning, a picture of her laying on his chest, and it's captioned, hey girlie, I hope you don't mind, but I have to spend the night at his house. He lost track of time working on our project, and it's way too late for him to take me home. So at this point, I'm furious, and I don't snap her back. So the next morning, I call my boyfriend. And I asked him, hey, is Addie still there? So he says yeah, and then I ask him to put me on speakerphone. So when he does, I say hi to Addie. She goes, OMG, hey girl, how are you? And that's when I pretty much go off on this bitch. I tell him that while he was asleep, she was sending me pictures of her laying on top of him, off of his Snapchat, and that she was sending those type of pictures to multiple people on his Snapchat, because my best friend had texted me that morning, saying that she thought that we broke up because Addie was sending her pictures of her laying on top of him. So I tell him, pick, me or her. And she starts crying. After a minute of silence, he hangs up the phone and then blocks me. Good luck to the next girl.